Now move over to Europe, where Russia marked the 80th anniversary of Victory Day with a grand military parade in Moscow's Red Square. President Vladimir Putin invoked the Soviet Union's triumph over Nazi Germany to rally support for Russia's ongoing offensive in Ukraine. Over 20 foreign dignitaries, including Chinese President Xi Jinping, attended the event, reinforcing ties between Moscow and Beijing. Here's what Russian President Vladimir Putin said in his speech.
Правда и справедливость на нашей стороне. Вся страна, общество, народ поддерживают участников специальной военной операции. Мы гордимся их смелостью и решительностью, той силой духа, которая всегда приносила нам только победу.
Putin addressed the crowd, praising Russia's military and declaring that the whole country backs the Ukraine campaign. He also honored the bravery of the soldiers involved, with 1,500 troops who fought in Ukraine marching among 11,000 soldiers. The event also saw Putin greet North Korean military personnel, highlighting the growing alliance between Russia and North Korea. As the parade unfolded, Putin underscored Russia's role as an indestructible barrier against Nazism, a theme that echoes Russia's justification for its invasion of Ukraine. Russia's Victory Day parade showcased military might and unity, with global leaders attending the grand event in Moscow. We are now joined by Gilbert Doctorow, Russian affairs expert located in Brussels, Belgium, to discuss this in further detail. Gilbert, given Western sanctions and most of Europe not being in attendance in Moscow, but you did have the likes of, obviously, guest of honor, President Xi Jinping, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, and Brazil's Lula da Silva. Where does that tell us where Putin and the Kremlin stand diplomatically in the world right now?
I think there were a couple of reasons why President Xi was the guest of honor, the most important guest, as described by President Putin in advance of this event. The first one, which people don't talk about, is that there will be a similar event in Beijing, I believe in July or August, to celebrate the victory in the Pacific theater of war in World War II. And that will be hosted by Xi. Mr. Putin has said that he will go to that. And a lot of other countries in the region will come. Now, which countries could that be? I think it was important to see who was present today in Moscow. The whole of Southeast Asia was there. I mean, Laos, Cambodia, Indochina was there. These countries, Myanmar, they all had their symbolic contingents of army, and they had their heads of state in Moscow. So we will probably see them again when Mr. Xi officiates at the end of Pacific Theater of War in the summer. The two most notable guests, which I would add to the list that you mentioned, were the leaders of Slovakia, Mr. Fico, and the leader of Serbia, Mr. Vučić. Both of them had faced enormous pressure from the European Union headquarters and from certain states, the Baltic states and Poland, not to come. In fact, Mr. Fico was denied air passage for his plane to go to Moscow by the Baltics and by neighboring states. I think that this is a very important development, that he made it to Moscow, and you can be sure that this is a nail in the coffin of the European Union. The fact that the European Commission President von der Leyen had threatened Vučić with never being admitted to the European Union if he went to Moscow, has now been proven to be an empty threat, and her power was weakened accordingly. I cannot see that Mr. Fico will vote for any sanctions against Russia after having been so viciously treated by fellow European countries at the instigation of the European Commission. So it was a very important fact that these two gentlemen were present, and if you follow the television coverage, they were just two steps behind Mr. Putin. It also was noted that they didn't know one another very well before this trip. And so
Yes.
it was an excellent opportunity for them to coordinate their policies towards the European Union in Brussels at this event.
Gilbert, President Putin said that Russia is once again fighting Nazism in his speech. How do Russians justify linking today's Ukraine war to the 1941 to 45 struggle that cost the USSR 27 million lives against the Germans?
The average Russian has no difficulty making that link, thanks to the acts of Mr. Scholz as Chancellor, sending in the Leopard tanks and other military equipment to the Kiev regime, which was used in the Kursk offensive. The Kursk battle was one of the most eventful battles in World War II, when the Russians and Ukrainians and the other members of the Soviet Union, after very great losses of personnel and great efforts, chased the Germans out of Kursk. So the fact that Kursk was chosen by Mr. Zelensky's group as the area of entrance to take away territory from the Russian Federation for a negotiating chip, that was a perfect way to remind every Russian family of the link between Nazi Germany and the present-day Germany.
Gilbert Doctorow, thank you very much for your insight and for